Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. This is the second episode of the new series, which is called Narcissistic Recovery. I was thinking about this concept and realized that a lot of the videos I've already created are all geared towards the same thing, but I figured for this particular segmented series, it would just focus on those types of subjects that are strictly recovery. They can be intertwined with the others, and we will continue where we left off with our favorite, Thomas Sheridan's Puzzling People, the Labyrinth of the Psychopath, and the other Cluster B monsters. The next section in his book is entitled, Farewell, My Psychopath. Hello, the real me. But he's stating that those who ignore the impact of these creatures on individuals and society as being very real, personal, financial, social, and political problems, if not the greatest danger to the human race's future survival, they'll forever shake their heads in anguish at behaviors they either just cannot come to terms with, or will forever rationalize away until eventually they're destroyed. You see, these creatures are all business, and they go about their scams and their schemes in an almost pragmatic manner. But, as Sheridan tells us, their main currency is the emotional and psychological rape of others. And he gives us a very important lesson. We shouldn't ever feel sorry for these creatures. Ever. Which I know it's tempting to do because we've listened to their fake sob stories about how when you uncover, let's say, something they did horrible, you were shocked and they're not done with you yet, so they'll probably come back with one of their pity play things like,
well, the way I was raised, this happened as a child, and because of that, that's why.
And you'll be tempted to buy into that and think, oh, well, I didn't have a childhood like that. This person did. Oh, this person deserves compassion. Fake. It is a fake act. They would slit your throat if they thought they could get away with it, but they won't let you know that usually. And we've also learned that feeling pity for them is a trap, because that's one of their hooks that they lure us into their game with. I've known a few who have made statements about like mental health issues. Not terrible ones, of course. Not I'm a psycho killer, but they use like
I'm a borderline personality,
or
I'm a bipolar personality,
or
I have depression personality.
whatever. That's designed to get you to excuse anything that they do that doesn't quite make sense or seems completely evil. And when you step up for yourself and say, look, I don't think I want to hang around somebody who does things like this, wins, which would be their scams that they pull off, then you'll be given the pity play of,
well, you had a perfect childhood, I didn't, and you're just going to leave me for this after all the love bombing I've done on you, which they
would never say, but you get the picture. They lure caring people in. And we must remember they are not innocent victims of some kind of illness or disorder. No, they're in full control of their illness and disorder. They exploit it to the max and they love it. And then Sheridan tells us there's only so much life energy in these creatures, and it's nearly all being used up with their devious intentions. And he says it's no wonder why a lot of them have non-stop medical complaints, dead fish eyes, unnerving stares, annoying habits, crazy handwriting, legendary strange sleep patterns, and an inability to produce any kind of technical document or schematic, let alone read them. I've noticed with a lot of these types of people, there are plenty of subjects involving, say, music or musical instruments, information about specific people, histories, stories, and so on. I could sit you down with a cup of coffee and just elaborate on and on about whichever subject suited your fancy. Problem is a lot of these people, they don't have that ability. They just can't. All they can do is recite practiced and memorized lines that they heard somewhere else or got from a movie, and you can't really break through the surface and get to know the person because there isn't a person there. It is a empty shell putting on the act of a character of a person. Thomas Sheridan says the psychopathic biological machine is far from perfect. hence their emotional vampirism, gaining rushes and thrills from their carefully crafting more scams which rob us, innocent people, of our energy via every encounter, including one-night stands to systemic financial destruction and political control. The flesh, blood, and bones of a creature is a shell. I just said that. Inside there is no man. There is no woman. There is simply an evil predator who can be anything we need them to be for as long as it serves their nasty purpose. Next section is your perfect humanity is non-negotiable. When a psychopathic consciousness enters the human body at the moment of conception, they find it hard work to keep the biological host operating with the same efficiency as a human consciousness / soul does. And he compares this to a young teen who is stealing a car, but he's not a good enough driver to work all the controls involved properly. In the case of these creatures we're dealing with, the full skill set needed to operate inside the human skin they cloak themselves within are simply not there. And it's sickening sometimes because you'll see that and you won't want to believe it. I've had it a few times where I'm suspecting somebody of being one of these creatures and I'm seeing like a blatant example that really points out like, this person doesn't even know how to be a real human being, but we don't want to believe it. We're like, oh, maybe I misunderstood. Let me gaslight myself because I've spent all this time with this person. I don't want to believe that it could be that monster. But we eventually learn that's exactly what it is. They'll never tell you usually. But that's what makes them easy to spot when you are aware of their biobehavioral idiosyncrasies. This defectiveness of the creature is being projected onto the rest of humanity as a whole and may explain in a broader socio-psychological sense this transhumanist rush to have us all upgraded and get that chip, the mark of the beast, the mark of the Narcopath. Now, Sheridan says if someone watches a video interview with the main proponents of this transhumanist movement, it becomes laughingly apparent that they're hardly the kind of people who have personalities which would set the world on fire. Yet these classic, socially inept, emotionally vapid uber nerds, who can barely string a sentence together, nor make proper eye contact, are the ones who have declared us human beings as a defective and obsolete species that must be upgraded to soulless robots for future industrial production and the service industries, which he says is classic psychopathic projecting, imposing their own personal shortcomings on the rest of us. This is why we must resist these individuals at all cost, and with the same steadfastness as we resist the psychopathic control grid, be it in a relationship or of a political, commercial, economic, or scientific origin. He commands you to let no one, no corporation, no government, switch off your humanity in order to make their own business models run smoothly or be more profitable. And the last section here is drain. Power drain. One of the main problems these monsters have with operating a human body is extreme difficulty with the human body's electrical system. This is most apparent in their brain and their nervous system functioning. He talks about Robert Hare, which I have one of his books over there in the corner. Robert Hare, PhD, during his research on psychopaths using CAT scan technology, proved beyond doubt that the brain of the psychopath stores information in a scattered manner, instead of in the normal partitioned regions within the cerebral cortex. He says that part of this involves the lack of vital neurotransmission functioning. Information is then scattered all over the brain and results in longer than normal amount of time for their brain to retrieve and process information. Their waking brain functions resemble the activity of a regular person in a light sleep. No matter how educated or not it is, there's simply not enough of the brain switched on in order to be truly creative, innovative, seamlessly dynamic in social situations, or talented. Certain parts of the brain's function have to be sacrificed in order to maintain their devious agendas and their fake persona. Interesting, the brain of a normal person goes into a light sleep mode similar to the psychopath's usual state when we're watching television with those beta waves. We're suspending critical thinking, making the normal brain inclined to impulsiveness and susceptible to suggestion, just in time for the commercials. Now, Thomas tells us to think back to a time when you were in a relationship with one of these creatures and how the crazy making seemed to always involve this person's sheer incompetence in performing the most basic, technical, or domestic tasks, while at the same time talking down to you as if you were the stupid one. The creature in the middle of a project can suddenly switch to something else for no apparent reason. Out of the blue, their previous highly vital, important project discarded just as if it never existed, just like their targets that they date. Now, these creatures may also have constantly made weird, irritating noises, used bizarre, obnoxious phrases and tones, spoke with a cartoon-style voice, mispronounced words like "I'm going to the buffet tonight. Do you want to come with me to the all-you-can-eat buffet?" in an annoying, infantile manner, referred to themselves in the third person as
Mr. Slick thinks that we should go to the movie tonight early.
rather than, "You know what, I think we should go to the movie tonight early." And they can be incredibly socially rude by belching loudly, lighting a cigarette in a non-smoker's home without asking if it's okay first, or sneezing intensely like a crazy scream. Achoo! One childhood victim this author knew about told him that he used to have his head placed under his father's buttocks while the father passed wind in the child's face. The child was then laughed at and ridiculed. The psychopathic father would then encourage the mother and the sister and brothers to join in the humiliation and the mocking of this child, which is developing proto-psychopaths. When the child broke down after one humiliation too many, the father then called this child, "You're a queer. You ain't a real man." And this is how the unchallenged psychopathic parent cultivates absolute control of the family unit within a home. They do it to your country too, if they can get the power. Those naked body scanners is a prime example. Sheridan asks if you can recall the psychopath's arrogance and grandiosity as they claim to be an expert in this or in that, then proceeded to upgrade your computer, soup up your lawnmower, or develop a business proposal that was surreal in its total incomprehensible scatterbrained stupidity. You want to see what the political version of such pathology is like? Look no further than American Neocon Project for the New American Century. A manifesto so divorced from reality that if it wasn't responsible for the deaths of millions of innocent people around the world, it would be considered a script to a Monty Python sketch. Now, when this creature gets bored with the latest master plan to improve something that was fine to begin with, which is usually you, they walk away from you, your broken computer, destroyed lawnmower, ethnically cleansed nation. They'll then talk down to you as if it was your fault for not validating their visionary genius, hence why it didn't work. It's your fault. It's not theirs. Is that familiar? Now, in any relationship with these creatures, the target's always the more intelligent, insightful, and educated, clever partner. But these creatures, I've noticed, will campaign as though their life depended on it to convince you that you are the one with the problem. I've had that before where I've graduated, gotten an actual college degree, and then am involved with some dropout who's trying to tell me how it works. And it's like, at least you could finish your degree before trying to tell me how it works. I have 5 more years experience than you as well, and I happen to know A, B, and C, and they don't want to hear a word of it because they know it all, even though, whatever, that's the way it works. And this is the result of their grandiosity. They're a half-wit psychopath. It's only good for one thing and one thing only, which is being a manipulator. So there's no substance behind any of this fakery. It's just all show. And they, of course, won't admit this. If you ask them to demonstrate something they're so expert in, they won't be able to, and they'll attack you. "Oh, leave me alone, you're just jealous," or whatever they'll say. But apart from being a manipulator, all these creatures are bullies, parasites, and imbeciles, and they're jealous of all the things that you are, and that you can feel that they'll never be able to experience. It's almost as if they're blind. They have no vision. Here you are with 20/20 vision, in a beautiful IMAX theater with brilliant colors and 3D graphics and beauty everywhere. You could spend hours telling this person how beautiful it all looks, but they're not going to get it. They don't have that vision. So it'll just sound like a concept to them, much like a man might listen to a woman talk about a womanly thing that he'll never experience. It's just like words. It's not going to really be something he can understand. So even if the enjoyable testosterone-driven sex life of your early encounters with this creature suddenly vanish once a relationship's been established, somebody else is being manipulated with them now. You're no longer in the game. As soon as the wedding ring was on your finger, you signed over your deeds to your property. The psychopath is off doing the same thing to the next sucker. Same rule applies for the elaborate romantic dinners that they used to woo you with. Somehow that's been replaced with you ordering some Chinese delivery, it's rotten with MSG, and eating it by yourself. Can you see how, on every level, these creatures are another subspecies of humanity? The Homo psychopath archetype in media is the engine which drives our social and relationship model these days. Nevertheless, they remain a deeply inferior subspecies due to their poor functioning and neuroelectrical systems. They cannot get away from this no matter how powerful they become, even if they're the leader of the free world. This creature's a lemon at the end of the day. For all their enjoyment of calling other people names, or their new favorite term of abuse has the word tards at the end, like hoax tards. The creature has the most inferior brain of any hominid, and he would include most species of monkeys and apes in this. Primates know what love and bonding is and why it's important to their survival. That's why in the end, we'll win over these creatures, and they'll lose. We are truly the wise ones, the kind of deep-rooted emotional, spiritual, and intellectual wisdom that only can originate from the rich experiences of the human condition. And this is a wisdom that is very powerful. Via its gestation within the human soul, it waits to manifest into the hearts of decent men and women, not evil creatures. I find it very interesting, the part about the brains being scattered and not having everything the way it would be for a regular person, because I've come across a few of these creatures that will not get it. And here I was thinking that everybody has the same full ability of thinking, and they don't. Like with these people, for example, when they are inconsistent with you, like in their mind, they're trying to achieve a specific goal, so they'll make a statement, even if it's like a blanket statement, encompasses their entire being, but it really doesn't. It's just something they heard somebody else say somewhere that worked for whatever purpose, and here we are looking at it in a full holistic manner, thinking, wait a second, how could that be if this is going on here? And you'll notice if you try to have such debates or questions, you'll end up empty-handed with nothing, because possibly, like this book is saying, their brains don't function in a regular manner. They just simply have a bunch of quotes here and there without any knowledge of how they would interrelate together. That's way beyond the scope of their abilities, which they probably know, but they don't know how to address. So they have ways of just steering the conversation elsewhere, and it's sickening. Another thing I found interesting in this chapter is the fact that they cannot sit down and give you a thorough description of something that's not rehearsed. I was involved with one before that I kind of got worried about, because I was in that situation where I was stuck with this person thinking everything was going to be great and fall into place, and then these things started to show up, which they always will, because these people can't fake it forever. And I would sometimes address it like, look, why can't you ever just sit and tell me a long, drawn-out thing that I get bored with, at least, which might be nice? And I'd say, well, why can't you just sit down, elaborate, and tell me something really interesting that you're passionate about? And the response I would get would be,
That's not my personality. I'm just not like that.
and I think, what? They don't have an answer. They come up with crap like that. If you hear that, that's a clue. Get going. Now, as far as his talk about the weird, irritating noises, and obnoxious phrases and tones, and cartoon voice, all that, well, I don't do the third-person thing, but I do some of the other stuff and always have. It's just something I've always done. So I am a psychopath. But how could that be? I know what he's talking about when he talks about the third person. I've seen that in action, where the person acts like they are superior. And the thing is, usually you'll know something or some things about them that's totally, totally inferior. And see, we just look at them and like kind of laugh to ourselves. Because it's like, you're not superior. You're acting like you are, but I happen to know that you have these 10 pieces of dirty laundry, and those pieces of dirty laundry indicate a lack of responsibility.
I am the Narcopath.
Being the Narcopath, you know that means I'm sneaky. But I'm currently in TJ's
little studio, whatever you want to call it. And he is so stupid, he left one of his books around. Evidently he reads from this one regularly. I was going to toss it in the fire because I think it clued him in on some of my games. Can't have that. I don't want to be exposed. But look at this book. He's got this, and he's stupid enough to leave it. Well, I guess he didn't know that I'd escaped from my cage, but still, he should have locked it away. I'm just going to take a look at it and see how accurate it is, because he thinks he knows everything. I found a particular section that caught my interest. It's called The 5 Absolute Psychopathic Traits in Action. Are you kidding? It says something about a pity play or a sob story. It says that such things make the victim feel nurturing. Well, honey, that's common sense to somebody like me. I find one of you nice guys, one of you sensitive guys, and I know exactly how to get you on my side. Well, this book so far is right, goddamn. This information should not be made public. Helpless, hurt damsel in distress. That's one of my favorite games to play. Where I meet some hot guy, I show him my teats really quick and have to leave, and then he calls me and wants to go out, and I pull a trick on him by saying, oh, I can't go out, I'd love to, but I've run out of money. And what do they do every time? They say, that's okay, honey, I'll pay. Bingo! Ooh. Who is this author? Thomas Sheridan. Maybe I dated him. What's the next one? The Invented Persona. That's me. Crafted after I researched my target and discovered all the... Well, of course I do that. I don't give a crap about anything about you. I just soak in everything about you. Whether I like it or not doesn't matter, so I can use it later. So he's right on this one, too. Oh, the missing past history. Oh, my God. You're not going to know my past history, or we would never have had date 1. Got that one right. Lack of remorse. Oh, are you kidding? Who cares? You deserve whatever I did to you. Devastation, whatever that is. You don't know what devastation is. I was devastated as a child. You would never understand. So don't think anything I did could have ever devastated you. You think you're so special. When I dumped you, yes, I did have my closure, and I made sure you didn't have yours. Just in case I needed you later. I knew there'd always be that thing to pull back on, just in case, and I knew just what to say to make you think you were on the right track to getting your closure. Never happened, never will. And then, what's the last one in here? You were longing for me physically because you were addicted to the sexually charged glow from the high testosterone levels. No comment on that one because I'm a lesbian and I'm a man, so maybe I have both. Who knows? I've got to go before TJ finds me. It was fun going through his stuff, though.